Anytime there's an assault on a police officer, which is a very serious offense, it is bail eligible and bail should be sought.
After several suspects accused of attacking police officer in Times Square were released without bail.
Should not be allowed to walk the streets of the city of New York if you are committing any form of criminal behavior.
It's mind-boggling that anyone would want to try to release this dangerous individual.
To hold the right people accountable for the right conduct. This is a bedrock principle of our justice system.
Attack on 2 NYPD officers in Times Square. Today, Governor Hochul was fuming over the attack, even threatening to deport the migrants who were involved.
Illegal migrants maul cops. A prosecutor who refuses to uphold the law poses the greatest threat to public safety. On the other hand, a justice system in New York where elected Democrats intentionally weaken the community's ability to incarcerate serious offenders comes in at a close second. Think about the poisonous mix of daylight and video if you want to know how a group of illegal immigrants could attack 2 NYPD officers in Times Square. A person who has been arrested has the right to bail, which means they should be released from detention until trial. This is a prevalent but incorrect belief. That a lot of us are confused about this is reasonable. The Eighth Amendment addresses the issue of bail because the presumption of innocence is a cornerstone of due process standards outlined in the Constitution. However, let's study it more closely. Excessive bail shall not be required, is what the amendment states. This in no way implies that every case must have a bail set. This means that when pretrial release is warranted, the defendant's bail conditions cannot be set so high that they are impossible to comply. It would be absurd to set bond at $1 million for a low-income defendant accused of petty theft because neither he nor anybody he knows has that type of money or connections. Nonetheless, bail shouldn't be set for some defendants because their offenses are too heinous or because they don't have any ties to the area where the crime occurred. Furthermore, bail is not necessarily needed by due process. Rather, it simply states that the defendant cannot have their bail denied without first undergoing a fair and lawful process. The presumption of innocence remains in place and will serve its intended purpose at trial regardless of that. Risk of flight is the standard starting point for bail inquiries. How can the court be sure that the accused will appear in court for the trial and any other related proceedings? A person should be detained as a flight risk when he has recently arrived illegally and is caught on film committing a major crime. His ancestry is from a different nation, and he has no ties to the area either. In addition, he has a strong incentive to run if released, as he should already be jailed under federal law for being present unlawfully. Naturally, New York is an example of a sanctuary city, a place that does not comply with federal immigration rules and even refuses to acknowledge their existence. It is obvious that woke progressivism has New York under its thumb. The reasoning behind that philosophy is that the system must be fundamentally racist, since non-white offenders are prosecuted at higher rates. It cannot be that other groups commit crimes at higher rates, as every unbiased analysis of crime statistics and victim reports demonstrates. If high-flight risk offenders are released conditionally in New York, it is common for them to flee, frequently after committing other crimes. Bail is decided based on 2 factors: danger and severity. In this area, the Empire State is clearly seen. In any state in the U.S., a defendant can be held until trial if prosecutors prove that no amount of pretrial conditions can make the court believe the defendant, if released, would not pose a threat to the general public or any witnesses that could testify against him. The legislation in question is at the federal level. Beyond that, it's the rule in all but one state, New York.
Anytime there's an assault on a police officer, which is a very serious offense, it is bail eligible and bail should be sought.
What makes anybody think that he's going to behave on the streets of the city of New York?
Commits a crime against a police officer in the state of New York, and they're not, they've not processed, they're not here legally.
Bail should have been set on those individuals. It was a serious felony, and bail should have been set. Why it was not set, I do not know.
Put it in your mind. When people attack police officers when they are doing their jobs to keep the community safe and uphold the law, it shows how dangerous people can be, even more so than a terrorist strike. Conditions of bail will not prevent suspects from committing willful acts against armed police personnel. Detention of such defendants is standard practice across the nation. New York, though, is an exception. The nature of the crime and the accused's criminal record cannot be considered by New York judges when deciding whether or not to set bail terms for the defendant. A group of undocumented immigrants brutally attacked 2 police officers last week, and there was good reason to seek custody of all of them, even in light of New York's absurd bail rules. However, the burden of proof lies with the prosecutor. If you want to see District Attorney Alvin Bragg, a liberal Democrat, seek bail for illegal aliens who attack police, he'll gladly indict Donald Trump on a ridiculous false business records case and pile on enough counts to put Trump facing a possible sentence of more than a century in prison. In response to public outcry over the initial 5 suspects' unrestricted release, Bragg's office was successful in having bail set for 2 additional individuals who are currently being held until additional hearings. Yes, it is possible. All it takes is a prosecutor who is eager to bring charges. Reportedly, the jurisdiction has lost track of the first 5 illegal immigrant cop beaters who strutted out of court while pointing fingers at New Yorkers. They will evade accountability no matter what you do.
DA Bragg, why did you not ask for bail? Why didn't you ask for bail for these migrants?
After several suspects accused of attacking a police officer in Times Square were released without bail.
To hold the right people accountable for the right conduct. This is a bedrock principle of our justice system.
Did the right thing by releasing illegal migrants charged with assaulting 2 New York City police officers violently.
Times Square melee. The riot that attacked 2 New York City police officers in Times Square on January 27 has resulted in the charges of 8 migrants, with a total of 14 persons possibly implicated. Every single one of the people seeking refuge is a native Venezuelan. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has already recognized 2 of them as being associated with the infamous Tren de Aragua, or Aguagua train, a gang that operates in Venezuela. The 24-year-old Yohenry Brito was the one who started the fight by staying put when the police urged the raucous crowd to disperse. The act of tampering with tangible evidence was also included in his indictment. After posting a bond of $50,000, or $15,000 in cash, Brito remained in jail for a while before a temporary release. Brito was released from jail on Tuesday after the Reverend Juan Ruiz, an activist pastor at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, posted bail for him. Around 8:30 p.m. on January 27 outside a migrant shelter on West 42nd Street near 7th Avenue, Yorman Reveron, a 24-year-old who had been the target of demise threats, is alleged to have pushed another officer and grabbed and threw another cop to the ground during a mob attack.
Who have no ties to New York City, New York State, or this country. Do you think he did the right thing? And they're charged with felonies.
A violent encounter between NYPD officers and some of the migrants here in the city.
Should not be allowed to walk the streets of the city of New York if you are committing any form of criminal behavior.
Attack on 2 NYPD officers in Times Square. Today, Governor Hochul was fuming over the attack, even threatening to deport the migrants who were involved.
He has been a city resident for approximately a year and has a history of at least 2 prior arrests in Manhattan, both of which resulted in his release without bond. On January 31, 22-year-old Yohan Boda was taken into custody and is currently facing charges in Manhattan criminal court for attack on a police officer and impeding governmental administration. His refusal to post bail and his subsequent defiant gesture toward reporters as he exited the courtroom only served to infuriate the public even more. At Thursday's arraignment, a man was ordered held on $250,000 bond or $100,000 cash in Manhattan criminal court. He was requested to be held without bail by the prosecution. Members of a migrant mob allegedly attacked NYPD officers in Times Square, causing them to hit and bite store employees. The individual in question is said to have grabbed the leg of one officer and kicked one officer's foot during their altercation with Brito.
I don't believe people who are violent in our city and commit repeated crimes.
It's mind-boggling that anyone would want to try to release this dangerous individual.
We will go forward to indictments, and we will hold those accountable who did these heinous acts.
Send them back. You don't touch our police officers.
Near the scene, Authorities arrested 21-year-old Wilson Juarez on suspicion of gang membership. He was later released without bond. Following the signing of a removal order by a judge in El Paso, Texas, on February 23, 2023, he was apprehended at a Bronx apartment by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials. Joining Juarez in arrest on an ICE warrant was 19-year-old Kelvin Servita Arocha, who is also thought to be part of a vicious gang. On Friday, he was released on $15,000 bond and is still being held on an ICE warrant in connection with the police brutality. Gomez Izquiel, 19, was first apprehended for a violent robbery 2 weeks subsequent to the police brutality and freed without bail. However, he was re-arrested for a violent robbery at a Macy's in Queens 2 weeks later and remanded until his arraignment in Manhattan Supreme Court.
And they've constantly gone back to that in court, arguing, making the case for some type of bail.
Federal immigration authorities say 2 of the asylum seekers arrested for attacking New York City police officers recently.
Suspect will be in court this morning, we're told, and he is accused of attacking 2 police officers.
Accused of instigating the group assault on 2 officers in Times Square was back in court. He is being held on $15,000 bail.
On Tuesday, 17-year-old Yarwin Madris was taken into custody and faces charges of interfering with official business and assaulting a law enforcement official. His arraignment in Manhattan Criminal Court was preceded by an order to hold him without bail. In addition to these charges, the Manhattan indictment stated that Madris tampered with physical evidence. In court, questions about Madris's age arose. Prosecutors claimed he lied to face the charges as a juvenile and is actually older than 17. Lack of evidence led to the dismissal of charges against a second suspect who had been apprehended in relation to the attack. The event was thought to have involved at least 5 other males, according to sources within the law enforcement community. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.